Going live.
Going live. This is us. This is our first video in like 3 months, I think, or a long time.
It's been a while, yeah. I figured it's a good time for us to start again. It's after all, it's beginning of the new year that we just had Rosh Hashanah, and now it was Parshas Bereishis. So,
Yes.
and we're going into Parshas Noach. So Bereishis is like how we start the Torah, and it's a new beginning. And Noach, going into Noach is, when Noach found favor in God's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about beginnings and how much we can influence beginnings in the way we see things and perceive things. But you had some things you wanted to share. What you want me to start, or you want to?
You could start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, someone, said to me that in the beginning, God created light out of the darkness. And, darkness is described is the word tohu vavohu, which is describing chaos, empty chaos. And out of that empty chaos, God created light. So being that we're all co-creators, for those, we discussed before, the idea that every human being is a part of God, and God has given us the ability to co-create with him, which happened after we ate from that tree, that tree of knowledge, which we'll talk about a little bit also.
Mm-hmm.
And how, we think of that as, a great sin and a descent that, humanity is suffering until today because of that sin. And on the note of how God draws light out of the darkness, the way we interpret things is affecting in the way we are going to experience our reality. And it's very important to see all these events that occurred in the past in a broader way, to see the bigger picture of things, because the interpretation of how we see things affects how we experience life in the now. So to bring this to a tangible example, you're having a rough day, and there's the person who will experience that rough day, and he will be miserable, and he'll be feeling the chaos and the emptiness inside, and feeling why why is life so difficult? It seems like the whole world's against me, and it just here's another day, and dealing with all this. And then there's the other person, and that person will be kind of abrupt with people, because he's just so chaotic and miserable that he can't get past that. But we have wonderful tools um, that we can use on a daily basis, and rules that we can set to tell us every day we're facing anything. And one of those rules is to know how everything is divine providence. And to acknowledge divine providence is to have gratitude. And that means that I'm facing a challenge, I'm facing some, difficulties here, but this is all for the good, and this is meant to be. God, everything is precise, and I'm here to learn. So I'm having an opportunity here to learn something. And when the person approaches the situation in that light, um, they give themselves an opportunity to create light out of the darkness. And so here you become the co-creator. So what do you think of that?
Well, I just wanted to say that, this Shabbos Mavarchim, and it's Parshas Bereishis going into a Parshas Noach. And for some reason, this Shabbos, I felt very satisfied with my portion, happy with my lot. I felt, everything, like she said, everything is hashkata pratis, and that, we were watching a Rebbe video at Shul, and it said that, it was talking about the rich man and the poor man, and that if a man betroths a woman when he's poor, is the betrothal still valid, even if it turns out that he was rich? And I guess he was lying, and he was actually rich. When the woman thought he was poor, she should even want him even more when she finds out that he's rich. But the poor lifestyle has a different than a rich lifestyle. And then it talked about how a tzaddik and about tshuva, how they do teshuva when the
Are you trying to tell me you never know who you really married?
you never know who you really married. But she said, how spiritual richness is different than.
Kind of reminds me of Rabbi Akiva, right?
Yes.
His wife thought he's very poor, and
Mm-hmm.
she's marrying a poor man, but he ended up being.
But it talks about rich spiritually, rich physically.
Mm-hmm.
That you could be poor physically, but you could be very, very rich spiritually. And also, I was thinking, like I read also the Shabbos, that Hashem created us. The purpose of creation is to do Torah and mitzvahs, and not just at shul or at the Shabbos table. We should be talking about Torah and mitzvahs, but every moment of every day of every moment, it's our job to spread light and
drawing light out of chaos. The world that we're in,
drawing light out of chaos, and that infinite light, the light comes up and then it pours down, and spreading light, being the Rebbe's shliach, being an emissary of the Rebbe. And today,
for those who don't understand, Rebbe, emissary of God, emissary of the light,
emissary of the light, and to spread the oneness of Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we were created. So that's our job. That's our shlichus, and to spread light through deeds of good kindness, being kind to our fellow man, and studying Torah and doing mitzvahs, and because action. And also I heard that action is above all else. So that action, and
because you could study all day, you can learn concepts, but if you don't really bring it into action, it's
right,
kind
deeds of kindness and action coming together, and talking about doing deeds of kindness and talking about Torah, and
So, on the subject of Eitzadas, the subject of the purpose behind the tree of knowledge was that
they say, first of all, the snake, the serpent, is known to be, the one who causes man to sin, causes man to, and we often like to kind of separate ourselves from, something that feels dark and, unattractive. But the fact of the matter is, we learn in Hasidus about numerical values and how we can see correlations between them. And Nachash, the serpent, which means, is in Hebrew interpreted Nachash, has the numerical value of 358, which is the same numerical value as the word Mashiach, which is Messiah. So out of the darkness again, you draw light. Okay, so in order to expand the universe in creation, it's like God takes everything that you draw out of the dark and you transform, and he uses that to create light into the world, to expand, to create. And it's like literally it says God waits and he looks at us to see what we're going to draw out of the darkness in order to recreate.
we're co-creators.
And so, if we want to create a better world, which everybody's into, I'm sure, I hope so, right?
Mhm.
It starts with your everyday mundane existence and your reality. Whether you're a mother, whether you're a professional, everything from the water carrier to I don't know, senator, president, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, anything from being a leader to being the one who carries the water, um, as described in the
Elevating
Torah.
the physical world.
They're all equally important, and they all can leave a huge imprint when they approach every day with that feeling of, okay, I'm facing this situation and this is divine providence and everything is for the good. So let me learn, let me see it in a good way,
Mhm.
Now, Itzadas was giving us the opportunity to exercise free choice. Itzadas, really Hasidus teaches us that the purpose behind the tree of knowledge when she ate from that tree, which was enticed by the serpent, which we now know has the same numerical value as Mashiach, Messiah, was in order to give man something called free choice. Now, why is free choice so important? We prefer, in fact, I feel it's more easy to just follow, let somebody guide me, follow me, and, but that's not really the natural way. The natural way is that the child reaches a certain age and they slowly need to be weaned away from the parent in order for them to walk on their own and now kind of carry the values and everything that they've learned from their parents out into the world to continue and to even elevate whatever they learned from their parents. Not to just stay stagnant with that. And we do that by, I was discussing today with this group of women that I was with today, at woman named Rachel Halper, was sharing some insights, and she was talking about how, we want to establish a relationship with our children in order to guide them before we just tell them you're allowed and you're not allowed. You want to establish a relationship with them. And so, the women were kind of commenting in different things and saying, well, when we do want to guide them, we want to speak from our heart, not just, they can, like, children can really see through us, it's not like, especially today, but the point that, I shared with them was, how the difference between me now and then in becoming a Baal Tshuva has relevance in me being able to share with others about how we can truly affect people in a deeper way. The experience that I had going through letting go of the mitzvahs, which I didn't do from a place of rebelling. It was kind of in a place of like, okay, I need to go through this process. I don't understand why, but this is where Hashem is taking me and I need to go through it. And in coming back, it felt I felt like I was in a very dark, chaotic place, because it's like I can't even describe to you the feeling of the lack of guidance that is like undescribable. Like, you just have so many influences around you that are pulling you in every which direction, and it's very unsettling. It's almost like a feeling that the Tanya describes as what they called kafakela, which would be described as hell, because you're being pulled from one end of the world to the other, and you just not sure where is the right place for me to be. And it was a very humbling experience, but I finally understood why I went through it. So here it goes. In the first time that I was Choser B'Tshuva, which means I basically came to start observing Torah and mitzvahs, which what they call, I repented, I returned, I came back
Teshuva.
to the tshuva, to be observant and everything. I kind of was like trying to prove to everyone that I'm worthy, because I married someone who was very much coming from what they call Geja. He came from a very, like, what they call royal blood. And I felt like I came from nowhere, like I'm nobody. And I was kind of being given that message, like, you can't even measure up. So I was kind of like trying to prove to myself and to prove to them, here I am. Look, I am kosher. I am wonderful. I am keeping everything. And look, I'm even more observant than him. And like, and not to do it because I truly did want to see him come along with me. And I did truly feel an excitement when I studied, what a mitzvah does, and understanding the deeper concepts. But there was a lack of humility. There was some judgment involved. There was like expectations of others to do as I'm doing, and imposing my understanding about things on others, despite not even looking at where they are. So it's almost like, okay, the Baal Tshuva has to come down from the mountain now and work with the people. You're not just, try to say, oh, I had this incredible experience and whoa, I'm high and I'm going to go and change the world. Come down to earth and understand that everybody's dealing with their stuff, and everybody's respectful. Everybody is in their own place, and don't run ahead of people. Try to humbly be.
It's almost like when you're approaching someone, you have an experience and you're trying to help the other person. It's all in the technique. It's all in the way you approach the other person. If you explain to the person the pros and cons, let them make the decision for themselves. When you enforce or force the other person to do your will, to convince the other person to do it, it's not coming from his or her own volition. You're imposing your will on the other person. But if you let the other person make his own decision based on what your experience, or your facts that you have from your own life and your own experience, don't take away their own free will. You can't force someone to do something. You can just show them, and it's on the technique of how you approach the other person, whether it's going to stick, when they're actually going to change and not hurt themselves or do something bad.
I was almost too righteous for people who are not keeping things. I don't know how to put that, but it's like missing the trees for the forest. You're kind of so up into the laws, thinking you're so self-righteous because I'm doing the laws and I'm doing precisely what you're allowed and not allowed to do, that you forget how to have what they call Ahavas Yisrael, which means to accept people where they are and allow them to be. And you can share and you can support, but you mustn't impose. And because then you're judging and you're thinking you're better than them, and everybody is a part of the puzzle, and we're all together representing God as a whole. But we should respect one another and understand that everybody has their role to play in this world. So in the second time coming around now and being Baal Tshuva, so my husband never, Shabbos was like completely foreign to him. Kashrus, covering my hair. The only difference is when I came home with a sheitel, he was like, I love it, which was a very new thing for me because I didn't, have a husband that, appreciated that before. And he was supportive. And then when I started to get into the Shabbos and the rules and everything, I started, really enforcing the rules, like don't touch the light. And if he put it on, then he'd say, oh, I put it on, let me shut it off. And shut it off. I said, if you put it on already, don't shut it off. Or, and I noticed myself getting more and more uptight. And I noticed almost like less enthusiasm in my husband towards learning Torah, doing things. And I was like, what's happening? He was so into it. What's going on? What's going on? And then finally, it just came to me like you're squandering his free will. You're taking away his free will. You're not allowing him to choose. You're taking away his ability to express, his nefesh Elokai, his chelek, his part of God, that is in him. So, and a friend of mine, Miriam, brought that to my attention as well. She saw him, light up and talk about some deep concepts, and I had to come in and explain things, and she was like, I saw something deeper coming out of him. You have to give him space to talk. Like, I need to do this now too. No, I'm just saying,
She got that from me. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, we as women like to feel like, we feel that we need to be heard, but we have to know who we are. And somebody who knows who you are doesn't need to be heard. They just know who they are. And but the men, on the other hand, their role really is to be heard. Their role really is to be revealing the godless.
I just want to say that I'm very lucky because I have Hashem has blessed me with a wonderful wife, and I say this from the bottom of my heart that I'm really lucky that my wife really it's such a blessing that she's perfect for me. She was made perfectly, especially for me. And when I said that, I'm very happy with my portion, very satisfied with my lot. I couldn't ask for anything else.
We'll see what happens 10 years from now.
Right. So they had the divider in the shul, the mechitza in the shul, and then I sometimes see if I could see her, through the mechitza. And I know you're not supposed to look past the mechitza and try to look at your wife, but I just can't help but look at her, and she's so wonderful. But I had to move my chair back a little bit so I could concentrate on the
see, that's why
the movie.
That's why they do that. See, because the men.
I can't be looking over at my wife.
The men lose their focus.
I have to concentrate on the Rebbe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to focus on the davening, not on the woman.
Yes. But what I was going to say is also I wanted to bring in that it talks about thought, speech, and action, and how thought, it's kind of like thoughts just come into your mind. At least for me, thoughts just come into my mind, and it's kind of like they're coming in. But with speech, you could control what you're going to say. You have more, control over what's going to come out of your mouth. Sometimes, because sometimes thoughts can just come and you just speak the thoughts. But so, and then action. Sometimes if you say something in anger, or you do something in anger, you can do the wrong thing. But so you want to. Try to have control over your thoughts, your speech, and your action. And when thoughts with the animal soul, you have thoughts that come to your mind. Sometimes I think, how can I have this thought? Where did it come from? This is a bad thought, and I know I should push it out of my mind right away. But I guess that's part of. We're not a tzaddik. I'm not a tzaddik, so there's going to be thoughts that come into my mind that are not wholly pure and holy, but there's a purpose to the animal soul. There's a purpose to sin, and turning it over, elevating the animal soul, and having free choice. The whole, without free choice, we wouldn't be able to sin. And in Bereshit, they talked about Adam and Eve, and the serpent talking to Eve and telling them to eat from the tree of the knowledge of between evil and good, and how that once they ate from the tree, they would no longer live forever. That they would die. And it said that Eve saw that Adam would remarry. If she died, she ate from the tree and she died, then Adam would remarry. So she made him eat, so he wouldn't remarry.
Oh, I never saw that.
I
Where'd
saw.
you see that?
I read that. I don't know if that's. You didn't know that?
No.
Is that true?
You hear-
One of the reasons, I guess, the reason why she knew that he didn't eat yet, so he would have to eat, so he wouldn't remarry after she died. Is that true? I don't know. That's what I.
Where did you read that?
I read it in the Chumash.
That's fascinating. Well, there's many levels of truth, and all of them are true.
Right.
So there must be a reason you read that.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
And then it talked about how the serpent wouldn't have legs; it would have to slither on its belly.
yes, there's so many explanations. It's so deep. The whole story there has so many layers of explanation. But I kind of like approach the Torah like I would approach to get, how to get to the source of things in order to, it's almost like somebody has symptoms and I want to get to the source of the symptomology in order to, cure the person. So it's almost like the Torah has many layers and explanations, and all of them are fascinating and all of them are true. But if we want to bring Mashiach, we have to get to the source of the truth. And I find that the source of truth is inspired in me when I study the Rebbe's Chassidus. It brings me to see multidimensional layers of meaning and explanations of the story from many angles, which incorporates all the other layers of translations. But what it does is it allows me to draw out the light from the darkness. That in all those stories, which some of them could even be oppositional explanations, could be opposite explanations. As they say, Shivim Panim LaTorah, there's 70 different ways to understand the Torah, and any one meaning can have 70 explanations, all of them being true. And in all that chaos, you could draw the light out of the darkness. When I study the Rebbe's Chassidus, it's like, now I get it. And we are really, truly here, once again, to draw the light out of the darkness, which means to see the deeper meaning, the deeper will that God had intended behind the story. Although the story has many veils, and seeing that, she ate from the tree and she was tricked, and then she, blamed it on the snake, and then Adam blamed it on Chava, and they were thrown out of the garden. And it's like, I'm seeing this Dr. Walter Campbell. It's like every time I see him, he seems to give the same images. God, I don't buy this story. Like he tells me, he told the nun, and he's a Christian, he grew up Catholic or whatever, and the nun was explaining, and she's saying, how dare you speak that way? But he questioned, and he said, it doesn't make sense that God would have, who knows everything, will, and he knows everything, and he knows what's going on, and he didn't know that they were going to eat from the tree, and then he's angry. God gets angry, and then for that little thing, he threw them, all of us are suffering. He says, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. God needs to come down here, and he needs to,
Explain.
More than explain, he needs to find a better plan, because the wars and the sacrifices and all the bloodshed, he's got to find a better way to do all this. I said, I agree with you. He says, I want him to come down here and fix things. I was like, that's all of us. Right. We're him. We're it.
He said his God is all about love and caring for your fellow human being.
Here's the cue. Mm-hmm. What we saw about what the Rebbe said today, Torah lo b'shamayim hi. Mm-hmm. The Torah is not in heaven. So even if there exists a higher explanation of truth, if the majority of mankind does not accept that higher truth, then it won't stick in the realms of this world down here. So that's why we all have the job to see things in the best way we can see them, because it's almost like God cannot introduce this. It's almost like the higher truth is compared to a very strong high beam of light, and if you put it in a place where the vessel is not ready to receive it, it's going to destroy the vessel. Okay, so the vessel is like your consciousness. If you introduce some piece of information to a person's consciousness that is in in a limited existence of in a Mitzrayim and in Egypt, which represents limitation, it'll draw the man out of his mind. It'll make him. It can make him mentally ill. It can make him sick. It can whatever. It says 4 went into paradise, and only Rabbi Akiva came out okay, because he understood that whatever he's seeing and experience, he has to come back down into the world to affect the world, not just to go and experience high things. So we're all here. We have to know our purpose, and the ultimate purpose in Hasidus is not to point out what's wrong with everybody. The ultimate purpose is to turn things over, to draw the light out of the darkness. And it's connected to this year that we have gone into, which in Hebrew, it's 5,780, according to when Adam and Chava were created. It's been 5,780 years. We're not counting all the 6 days of creation that we don't know there were other worlds or whatever else that existed prior to that. We're talking about after Adam and Chava were taken out of Gan Eden, starts then the beginning of creation. And 80 in Hebrew is Pei. And Pei represents Pele, wonders. So it's meant to be a year of miracles and wonders up above and beyond nature. And the greatest wonder that a person can do is to draw the light out of the dark, which is not to go beyond all the limitations of explanations of why and who, but to say, to begin with, this is godliness. Jump over. To begin with, this is godliness. And then by seeing in that person, by judging him favorably, you draw out those traits and you transform them. Instead of saying constantly, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, and you're lazy, and you have no motivation, and you're draining me, and you're blah blah blah. It just brings that person down. You want to give that person space for them to choose, and to be there to support them by complimenting them, and I mean genuinely complimenting them, and genuinely seeing in them the good and judging them favorably.
I just want to say that, when I do go to shul and go to Minyan and go to shul on Shabbat and all these holidays that we had in Tishrei, I feel relaxed. I feel at ease. This is where I belong. This is what I'm supposed to do. Part of being a mensch, a chassid, going to shul, and it makes me feel more relaxed, more at ease. And because this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do. And the path kind of like opens up and gets easier as you go along. But I go through ups and downs, and luckily I have a wife that sticks by me.
He's always complimenting me, but
she's patient. She's patient with me.
He doesn't say the truth. He doesn't say how many times sometimes I'm really impatient, and sometimes I'm really not exactly supportive.
She's a saint.
I get I get frustrated. I do. I get frustrated. I mean, my kids know me. I can get frustrated.
But it all comes from a good heart.
But when I see such,
You want to tell them that the dream I had of you as a werewolf? You turned into a werewolf?
Oh God. Yeah, he had this dream. It's funny. My ex had that dream too. What is that? So I said to him, it's because we all have a werewolf in tendencies. It's like that bipolar thing that, you know, people like to say the nachash is bad, and no, it's everything. God is one. Everything is within us. Everything lives and breathes within us. It's up to us to transform, the wolf into a kind being by recognizing, what you're doing and humbling yourself and turning it over. And so it's funny because my dad used to call my mother Wolfina whenever she got upset at him. So whenever he gets on my nerves, I basically say, "You really don't want to see the wolf in me. You don't want to see the wolf in me." But in humbling myself, I came to understand that I've got to give him. We've got to give each other ample space to choose on our own what, and trust that person uh, you know has that special relationship with Abishter, with God, and and that person knows what's good for them, and let them be to some point,
Right.
let them be. Of course, we don't want them to kill themselves, God forbid. There's an extent of, God. I'm saying that because I work with patients, a lot of patients who come in with suicidal ideation. So that's when we draw the line and, have to step in.
Right.
But
She saves people's lives.
we all do every day. Saving a person's life is not necessarily I've done CPR and then I resuscitated the patient. No, saving a person's life could be there's someone who's walking in total darkness and they think they really down and everything, and you go one step out of your way and you say hello to them. You smile, or you invite them, for a meal, or you offer something that you can help them with. um, I think that a lot of us have become very shy of doing that because we get overwhelmed, or we feel that the person might be taking advantage. But I think when it comes to charity, it says you're not supposed to try to figure out that person's intention. It's not your job to figure out or judge them about why they're putting their hand out. They're putting their hand out, that's a message to you that you need to give. And reasonably, even if it's $1 or whatever, but giving them that $1 or $5 or whatever it is showing that person that I believe in you, and I know you have you have the ability to do the right thing with this. I you know what I mean? It's like when you don't give nothing, it's like almost like you're saying, like, you know, I don't trust you, and you don't deserve this, and you're not capable of doing anything good with this. You know, sometimes I speak to patients on my unit that, are downright drug addicts, heroin, IV users, you name it, selling themselves for drugs, and they're in and out of the hospital, and it takes every ounce of strength in me to go and try and talk to them, because you think, oh, it goes right over their head, like they're not going to hear you. But I say to myself, you never know. Just keep planting your seeds. You never know what's going to sprout one day from that person. And I do get feedback. A lot of times I do get feedback. So again, saving a person's life, you could be doing a small deed of kindness to another human being, and you take that person out of the darkness. You give them a purpose to live. You give them a purpose to find their way back.
Mm-hmm.
So, every person saves someone's life. You have no idea who remembers you for what,
Mm-hmm.
Are we done? Or you want to say
I guess
anything?
we're done.
So in the beginning, you want to turn all the story over,
because how you see the story now is going to affect the rest of the year.
Mhm.
So turn the story over.
Yes.
See everything that's happening from here
Everything
on
for the
in.
positive. Anything that seems negative might seem negative to you, but it's positive. Like two people can go to a wedding. One person could have said, "Oh, that was a terrible wedding. It was horrible," and the other person said, "Wow, that was the best wedding I've ever been to." So two people can see different ideas about the same thing. So you got to turn it over and everything for the good. Even a bad experience, turn it over and look at it for the good you can get out of it.
Amen, brother.
Think good and it shall be good.
Trach good with
Talk good, design good,
goes a long way.
and Simchas Torah. Bring that Simchas Torah, that memory of Simchas Torah, of going up on the bima or holding the Torah or kissing the Torah on Simchas Torah, and bring it throughout the whole year. That memory of dancing with the Torah, Simchas Torah, all these holidays jam packed into 1 month, and that Simchas Torah is at the end for a purpose that we should think about the joy of Simchas Torah and bring it into the whole next year. May this be a year of joy and happiness and good news and all the blessings, all the fullness of a great year.
Riches
and wonders of a good year. Pella.
Healthy.
Pella.
Good health.
Good health.
Wealth. Love, kindness, peace.
Learning Torah mitzvahs.
Miracles.
Hasidus.
Wonders.
Mamarim, Sichas of the Rebbe. Okay, we're good?
Yes.
We got 40, almost 42 minutes. We said we're only going to do 30 or 40 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
So we're perfect. We're done.
Done.
Okay, anything, last closing remark? Shalom?
Peace unto mankind.
Peace.
Peace.
And Machdo.
Yeah, make here Eretz Yisrael.
Make here Eretz Yisrael. Even though we don't have our balcony doesn't overlook Jerusalem, Machdo.
Yes.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Are you sure you want to end your stream? End?